Hey, so we're trying another API design session. In this case, it's for Elm WebGL. And this is a library that was designed initially by John P. Mayer Jr. I think like Elm 12.3 was when it was released. And so this was something where we actually, on John's whiteboard in his apartment in on the East Coast, we were just speccing out all different designs and how it would fit together and how shaders would interact, and improved the design a lot. And since then, I'm not sure how much stuff has changed, but I do recall like you could do triangles, but you couldn't do lines. There were these kinds of restrictions. So I'm interested in sort of learning how things have changed since then, if at all, and then what kind of changes in particular you're interested in doing. So what's up? What's going on? Oh, also I'm Evan.
Sorry.
Oh, you can introduce yourself. Like what you've been up to with
yeah, I'm Andrey, like Elm enthusiast. I've been coding Elm for 2 years. Before I was doing front-end development for like 10 years. So my way into WebGL was because I wanted to create a game, and a virtual DOM was not performant enough on mobile devices. That's why I looked into other possibilities. Elm graphics didn't have enough APIs, so I dived in WebGL, and this is how I actually learned WebGL. I didn't know about it before. Only had like a computer graphics course in university.
Yeah, that was really fun when John was working on it originally, like learning actually how OpenGL worked. I was like, oh, like I know what a shader is now. It felt really cool.
When Elm was updated to new virtual DOM, it was broken, and I met Noah in Berlin, and he helped me to migrate it to Elm. I think it was
17 probably.
So when you introduced commands,
yeah,
and virtual DOM was rewritten. So I ported it. So before it was depending on element, and through element to HTML, and I made it work with HTML directly. So using a custom node of virtual DOM. And this was this was the change that I introduced, and all the rest is, I guess, it's still the same.
Okay.
As it was.
So what's the kind of stuff that you're looking to introduce in the potential minor and major versions?
So what is really needed is being able to set a context attribute at the moment, because it has some specific things to, for example, disable pre-multiplied alpha. So
give some more context. Like setting this context, is this global context? Is this like as on-off flag as part of the rendering pipeline? Like what exactly is going on here? Because as I recall, there was no context setting in the initial API. So one of my big questions is like, where is this in the rendering pipeline?
So when the first render happens, a new canvas element is created, and from that canvas, the gel context is initiated, and this initiator accepts attributes, object with attributes. And right now, it's not set.
Can it change over time?
In order to change it, you have to recreate the whole thing.
And that's a WebGL thing, not an Elm thing.
Yes. So I'm not sure if you can dispose WebGL context and reuse canvas element, or the whole canvas has to be replaced with the new node.
Okay, but it's not just a thing that you can just set a new context setting and things work fine.
Yeah, so um, if this thing requires like diffing, like if you want to update it during the lifetime of your like Elm program, then it will require like correctly disposing all the buffers, like cleaning up everything, and then initiating new GL context, and then starting over again from scratch. So, but this setting is really needed.
Okay. What's the other things past these context settings?
So there is an issue created.
Well, another thing is like, what do the settings do? What kind of stuff does it enable or disable? Just
So I like to have to be able to disable pre-multiplied alpha. It means when you want to load a texture. Right now it comes with alpha channel pre-multiplied. So R, G, and B are multiplied by alpha.
Okay.
And then you have to do this ugly workaround in the fragment trader. You have to divide these channels by alpha back.
Huh. Is there a speed gain of pre-multiplying? What's the reason? What's the reasoning either way for this?
I don't know. It's just the default behavior. I'm not sure if it actually makes sense. But
it's just the default behavior.
Yeah, this is how it works when you don't disable it. So
yeah. Okay.
If you want
So
to render a transparent sprite, then you have to work around.
As in, if you want to set your own transparency.
If you want to render like transparent PNG as the texture with alpha channel in it.
This messes that up.
Yeah.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Another setting is anti-aliasing. So if it is like I think it's enabled by default. So when everything is rendered, it's kind of smooth. But sometimes you may need to disable it, so it will scale the thing, and you will see like rough pixels. So, for example, if you want to do like an old school game, like where pixels have to be squares, then
right, it's bad.
Yeah, then it will look bad.
Is there a list of all the possible context settings somewhere that you found?
So yeah, so there is specification for it, basically.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see it. Let's see it.
Can I paste it somewhere? Yeah.
Just screen share.
Okay. So when you get a context from Canvas, the WebGL context attributes are this.
Wait, I'm trying to. Is there a way to make it bigger? It seems really small. Oh, if you resize your window to be wider, it'll be bigger than us. It's fitting to the dimensions of.
Like this?
Yeah. Okay, that's much better. Well, can it go wider? Okay, cool.
So I'm particularly interested in pre-multiplied alpha and anti-alias.
And okay, stencil, that's cool.
And there is this stencil setting.
How you can look hand drawn. Yeah. or no?
I've worked with stencil before, but there are lots of function calls for stencil buffers,
Hmm.
and there is a request from someone to enable to add the stencil functions, and they will not work if the stencil is disabled. So it's disabled by default. So
Yeah. I
it's
wonder if
just
there's a way to make it so that it's enabled if you need it. Like it's kind of weird that like whether or not you need it is whether you use it. So wouldn't it be better to know based on the use than like, oh, look, it's just not working. Um,
so maybe it's possible if you go through all the function calls and you find ones that need it, but then the whole
yeah, I mean, you
context.
can do it in types as well, where uh, a lot of things could have a type variable that's empty, and the stencil ones fill it in with stencil. And then you have two ways to start a program, which is like the stencil way and the other way. And a stencil program could never be started in the wrong way that way. So I don't know what cost that would bring to the whole API, but I think that's
How to deal with various combinations of these attributes.
well, this
So
would only be for stencil, right? Like for these other ones, usage doesn't determine the need for them, it seems like. Like anti-aliasing is a true option, right? Whereas
yeah,
like stencil is like you don't want the overhead unless you need the overhead, as far as I can tell.
true.
So I don't know. So okay, so these are the ones that exist right now. Do you think there will be more in the future?
Um,
There's like not very many.
no, and I'm not sure if we need all of them.
Yeah, okay.
Uh, but
Um,
but the cost is like when we want to change any of them during the runtime, then the whole WebGL context has to be recreated.
great.
I think it's possible to implement it. So because we store all the
Yeah, you
buffers,
can
they
diff
are in
it.
the cache. So I can go through all of them and then clean them and then create uh, new buffers and so basically doing
Yeah.
render from the diff.
Okay, so one thing I'm trying to figure out is like, should it be a list of uh, context attributes, or should it be a record of Boolean things? Um,
I think a record makes sense, and all of them they have default values, so it can be like default attributes exported from
yeah,
the
I
library.
mean the downside of a record is that if anything's ever added, it's a major change to the library to add the attribute. Whereas if it's a list of items, you just add a new thing, it's a minor change, and you can add it or not. But that has the downside that now you can add things multiple times and it doesn't really mean anything.
I,
Do you know what I'm
I
saying?
don't think that it will change because like, this is the list and specification, so
Hmm.
it will be
Well,
very
okay, yeah, but OpenGL has changed over time. This is not a totally static thing as far as I can tell. But
yeah. There is WebGL 2 current already.
yeah. So okay, so what's that seems all reasonable to me. So what's the other changes that would be major ones?
Um, the other ones are basically adding new function calls.
Okay.
So not all of them are supported at the moment.
So what kind of stuff?
For example, clear color that clears the whole screen, like fills it with color.
Uh-huh.
Um, then the ones
How would
with
you add that?
uh, basically just a function call.
Yeah, but what does it return? What's its type? It's a function.
Function calls are just union types, and that's why adding new ones will require to change the API.
What's the public API for that? I assume that's not a public thing, those union types.
They are. So this is expand. So this is the public API, and it's a union type. So whenever you want to add a function call, it has to be a major change.
That sounds bad. Let's not have that. Why would you ever pattern match on these?
This is how it was originally. So.
Yeah, no, it's not your fault. I'm just saying that doesn't seem good. Can you show me some code that uses this function call type? I don't think I got into this when I was playing with Elm WebGL.
So, for example, this. It's like modifying the triangle example.
Okay.
It's basically a list of function calls that you pass along with.
And that function always existed to HTML with?
Right now, yes.
And those are all just settings of like things that.
So how so to HTML is basically it takes a list of attributes. It is a regular virtual DOM node, so you can use any attributes and they will be applied on the canvas. And to HTML with has like a list of function calls, and this is basically like union type list of function call union type values, and you basically tell GL to run these things.
So these are similar to like context settings. Like how are they different than context besides someone named them both different things?
I think that context settings are limited. They are just like a record of attribute. And these ones, they can be combined in any way, and you can call them or not.
But you can, this is the other version of the same thing, right? So instead of having a record where you have access to all of them and you set them, we have a list and you add the ones you care about. So it just seems like the same kind of stuff. Like, are these things that you would change during the course of a WebGL program running?
Yeah, so these ones, they may change. So like
what's an example of that?
If you want to use a different background color, and then you just use clear color with a different color.
And what is depth test? Is that like you don't draw things behind triangles that are closer to the camera?
I think it will use like a Z buffer to see which things have to cover which things, so which things are under and which things are further.
Right. So can I see the full list of all those things?
So currently it's this one. And
so there are stencil things in there, but you can't enable the stencil stuff, so they're just not useful.
There is another pull request that adds even more function calls. So this is something that may be changed multiple times. It's, I guess.
Can I see the other one?
To add more features. So it's, no, it's not, sorry.
Also, is there a similar specification document that talks about these things that are not context settings, but are this other thing?
It's basically the whole list of things from the WebGL context.
Let's see it.
And I think that not all of them are needed. But it's basically gl dot and lots of stuff. And I don't really know how.
And are these things that some of them like line width? That seems like something you turn it to a certain setting, draw your lines, and then turn it to a different setting, right?
Could be. And this is, I don't know, maybe it makes sense to run them for each drawable.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, is like, if there's a way to, if these are settings that are, when you're actually rendering, you're saying this command, this command, this command, this command. And you'll do some like changing of settings somewhere in there. If some of these work that way, I'm not sure it should all be in the root. So I would want to be cautious of adding things in a silly way, right? Like if it uses 2HTML width, it shouldn't be local stuff. It should be global settings.
So the library supports this.
Okay.
So there is already, you can pass the list of function calls for each renderable, for each drawable.
Okay. And so that will turn things on or off within the scope of that shader.
Yeah.
Okay. So why do you need it in the root? I guess you can't have nested renderable things.
No, you can't nest them. They just want a plain list of. I don't know, maybe to enable it for all of them.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was thinking like if there's nesting, then you wouldn't need a root one. You just put them all, just nested. But it's not that way, it turns out. Okay, so can you go back to the function call definition?
Sure.
So one thing we can do to make this more robust to change, which people should do in general, is like don't expose a union type constructor directly. In general, you kind of never want to do it, and you can always get it around it another way. So let me open up a, can you send me a link to that code, the function call code?
Maybe it's better to view it like on the source.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Okay, chat. So I pasted it in the chat.
Okay, cool. I'm getting my editor situation set up. All right.
So yeah, I thought about like having just functions and not an exporting constructor. Then
yeah, is there some problem with that, or?
Not really. I think it will be better. So then change will not be a major change. Change to like adding new
future ones. Yeah, after the switch. So can you see my screen all right? You see that infinite regress?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. So like, and then for all the different variations. And I wonder why they take tuples.
This is another thing that I wanted to tell, that it's just an additional wrapper around. Maybe to make them look like functions.
Yeah. Well, like the C style.
Yes. I wonder if it was a limitation for Elm back some.
No, you could always have multiple arguments. It may have been like one reason that might be justified is that if some sub-thing needs to treat them as a tuple, then this would be doing allocation that you already have to do anyway. But I suspect that's not the case.
Yeah, and I think it's like in the native code, accessing a variable from the union type is the same as doing it from accessing it from the tuple. So they are _0, _1, and so on.
Yeah, so I would get rid of that actually then.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Then we can add more things without introducing major changes.
Yeah, so I think my only question would be like, when adding them, like doing it with care. And also, this might be a good chance to change this name, function call, like what? What? I have a function that creates a function call. It just doesn't seem like it makes any sense. So how would you describe what these things are? Like settings?
I don't know. They are really functions because WebGL is imperative. It's not.
Yeah, but WebGL is dumb. It's not. We don't have to inherit that from them. Right, like the history of, well, what's interesting to me about WebGL is that they took a like C++ API and just like didn't update it at all. So like anything, any API convention comes from like writing in a language without memory management, and like where it's just like do this, change this pixel to that, or this bit to that bit. So I'm very comfortable using a different term as long as it's not an official name. Like if WebGL specifies function calls as a concept, I think it makes sense to stick with it. But if not, like calling these settings makes a lot more sense to me. Or like render settings, I don't know.
So it's like the section is called state information that contains most of them. State information.
So like would having something like this possibly its own module, so people might in other parts of the code base be like,
well, I wonder if the order of them actually matters.
it probably does. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it does.
Yeah.
That's, well, I don't know if that would change anything we want to do, though. I don't know. So what do you think of this design?
I like it. This is like, I actually had this idea too.
Okay, that's good. That's awesome.
It will make it much better.
So yeah, so I think it's way more valuable to use a major change on this than adding one at a time piecemeal. I guess I don't have to change these, but I'm just doing it now.
Another thing, like in which order should they be executed when in the native code? Do they have to be executed in reverse order or in the...
I think it's a research question. Like, I think you just have to go read everything about all of them and find out that fact. But I would default to running them in the order specified in the code. And if it's shown that the order doesn't matter, then you can probably get some benefit by running them in reverse.
So currently in the native code, the library uses map to iterate over things,
Yeah.
actually reverts the order of iteration.
No. Really?
Because map has to build new list, right? So it iterates over everything in reverse order. And I would like to change it so it will go from head to tail of the list.
Did we change? There was this PR for map, I believe, that is written entirely in Elm that I think does it in a way where I don't remember. Is it? I'm not sure if this is true with 18. I would look into it again to see if that's still the case, though. So, but I take your point, and I would do it in order and figure out an efficient way to do that. So.
And then I also thought that map is actually building new thing, and this is what we don't need to build new entity, because we just need to iterate and then do something with the function calls or renderables. So,
yeah.
And Noah told me that it's better to just traverse the runtime representation. So
yeah,
just like have a while loop that goes from head to tail of the list.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, writing one by hand would work as well, because I think you could write a tail recursive one that would.
Yeah. So using while loop.
Yeah. For people listening, this is not the way you should normally think about. I'll show our faces. This isn't the way you should normally think about your code. It's like if you're writing the virtual DOM library or WebGL library, it makes sense to think about this stuff. But otherwise, don't let it mess up your code. So. Okay, so was that both of the potential major changes?
There are more.
Okay.
Some things that are don't really know how to implement them, but they were requests from other people. So somebody wanted to have interactivity, so being able to click items on the WebGL.
Yeah. Some picking.
Yeah, and this basically it requires to render the same things.
Different colors and
different colors, and then have a mapping from the color back to what you rendered.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be kind of neat if we had like a high-level interface to that, and it would be a killer feature. So people could draw things and interact with them.
Yeah, so I think that would mean a renderable if you go back to that, I guess I have it over here now. I saw there was a renderable and another thing.
With config.
Yeah, but they didn't create the same thing or something?
Yes, they create the same.
They both make renderable. Okay, I didn't see the drawable. Okay. I didn't see there was more to that type when I was looking at it before.
So a drawable is basically like the thing that you want to render. It's like a mesh.
Right.
And renderable is like basically a small program where shaders and mesh and uniforms are linked together.
Right.
So there is render and render with config.
Right. So I saw this and thought it was the end when I was looking at your screen, but in fact, it just keeps going. Okay. So, sorry, I got sidetracked by this renderable thing. What was the goal? Adding picking. Okay. So what's the other? Are there other requests like this?
Another request is to add a new drawable.
For lines.
So it's using index, like being able to specify indexes. So having like a list of vertices and then a separate list of indices that will point to vertices. So you don't have to.
Is that a thing in WebGL? I don't think it is.
It is.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it's what is
I
it?
mean, can't you set it all, if you're making something 2D, can't you set it all you're in 3D, so can't you just set it all using normal mechanisms? Why would you need something special?
It's basically to not have too many vertices. So you're kind of reusing same vertices and you define shapes using indices that point to the vertices.
I see, I think.
I can show some code.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Andrey.
Also, I asked Aaron recently about how to do lines, and I'm wondering if there's been any thought on that. But we can talk about that later. Okay.
So the proposal was to add a new drawable type.
And are these public as well?
Yeah, so I guess you have to do it for everything.
So yeah, drawable should be a function. Like people shouldn't have access to capital triangle, I don't think.
I don't know, maybe if it makes sense, like if people want to map over them and like you have a drawable with attributes and then you map over the attributes and you create drawable that adds some new things to those attributes. I used to do it for triangle, for example.
That sounds awful. Can't you just do it a better way? Like why would you have to do that?
Yeah, I guess it's possible to not pattern match over drawables, but have like internal representation, work with it, and then
have a view
encapsulate it with a drawable and then pass it to rendering.
Yeah, I think that would be way better. Like it's a similar reason why you can't do arbitrary looking into virtual DOM. Is like all the information you should be in your model. If it's stored in your view code, like you've made a mistake. And if that view code now becomes part of your model, you've made a mistake. So yeah, so I would, there might be another reason to iterate over it, but that alone would be a good reason to hide these, in my opinion.
So this is the index triangle. So triangle is a list of tuples of 3 vertices. And index triangle is like a list of vertices and then a list of indices that point to offset in the first list. So you can reuse vertices. And,
I don't get it.
There was the conversation, I think it was.
Well, like, what does it do visually? I don't get what this thing is.
It will render the same thing
as a triangle,
but it will use consume less memory because you can reuse vertices, and you only supply indices.
Can reuse? I don't get it.
So there was a very nice link that explains this. I think it was here. In the original pull request. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So basically, with indexing, you can reuse vertices.
Oh, that's cool.
So you will have to define less attributes. I mean, less vertices, and I guess
that's cool.
Performance-wise, it will use less memory.
Okay.
However, there is like a potential problem with this. is because you can create an index that points to out of bounds element.
Right.
And I don't really know how to handle this because here, like, if you want to be performant, it may be as well unsafe. And this is kind of trade-off here.
Yeah, this is a place where like there's a lot of additional safety that you can gain through trickery, and there are times I think this is an example where it's not worth it. It's just like, yeah. This is a cool trick though. I'm glad I have a picture now. It's just like, oh yeah, there you go. Okay.
And it has been implemented as well already in the pull request.
Okay.
So basically, currently the indexes are built by like going through each element, and each element gets like its own index. But with this you can just pass indices and use the ones that you pass.
Yeah, I don't get, how are indices assigned? I don't get that.
In the native code.
No, don't show me native code. Show me in the public API. Like, I'm going to write index triangle, and somehow I'm going to know which vertices I'm referring to. How?
There's an index in the list.
But doesn't that mean that
so
multiple things are using different lists? Like, how would this help at all?
So, like, for example, here, this will draw like a square, and it will only have 4 vertices.
Okay, no, it's a list of, okay, gotcha.
A list of vertices and a list of
indexes. I thought it was just, I misread it, and I thought it was just 3 indices, and I was like, wait, how do we share anything? Okay, so this makes sense. This is cool, because now, yeah, you can do a mesh, and you only need vertices 1 per vertice. So that's cool. I wonder...
sorry.
I wonder if there's a way to do it better, though.
I mean, it can return like maybe if we turn it into a constructor function. It can verify and return a maybe.
I don't know. I'd be more inclined to... I don't like that. Okay, this makes sense to me. How this design makes sense to me.
The original proposal had just list of indices, and I thought that it makes sense to have tuples, like defining triangles, similar to triangle.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Because I don't know if they have it in WebGL, but I remember in OpenGL they had like not just triangle, but there was like square, or like where you just would keep saying the points and it would keep drawing with the last 3.
I think it's called triangle fan. Like these are here as well.
Okay, cool.
But I'm not sure. Like we can have each of them indexed, so it's possible to, I guess.
Yeah, those can all express each other.
But the one that is like I guess mostly used one is triangles, so that's why.
Yeah. I remember using, I forget if it was fan or strip. Oh, I think I used fan because I made a cone, and it's really nice for that kind of thing. So, because you just put the top point and then you list all the things around the circle, and it's just like, sure, I'll do that for you. And I suspect that would be like more efficient than index triangle for that.
Yeah, because
particular
like
shape.
you mentioned, each vertex.
Only as few times as possible. And in that one, you don't have the cost of saying all the indexes. You just say, doo, 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 doo. Okay, so.
But it's not for like complex shapes, yes.
Yeah. Well, it could be if you do some like hard thinking and like, it might not be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so that seems reasonable to me, but I would say for both of those, it should be a requirement that the type constructors are hidden and it all becomes functions that the user sees. And internally, it can still be a union type, but no one should know. And then I guess I noticed that it's triangle fan and triangle strip and then index triangle. Why are those names not parallel? Are those the actual like WebGL names and they just happen to not line up?
The actual name is triangles. And index triangle is triangles as well. But just the first one creates an index for each vertex in the list.
And this is in WebGL? Like, what does WebGL call these different things? This is the root question here.
It's the same.
And it's just how many arguments you give?
For this one, Elm WebGL creates indexes using just like for each one it creates. And here you kind of expose this functionality into the Elm world. So
gotcha.
You can define. So this one can be like, maybe we don't even need like a triangle. Maybe we can just use index triangle. And
there should be a simple one, but from a core representation, yeah, you could use only index, but there should be a public function that's like triangle, in my opinion.
Yeah, so maybe it will like even simplify native code. So if we expose index and then we do indexing in the Elm code.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
But
so
that's
yeah, the only thing I'd be curious about is being true to the WebGL names, but without going overboard with like garbage names. I recall from like, if you're doing it in C, it's all like uppercase with underscores and like nonsense words. And so if we can avoid that aspect, but like changing triangle fan to some other name is like probably not a smart idea, for example. But triangle versus index triangle, I don't know. Yeah.
There was also a request to rename triangle to triangles to plural, because in WebGL it's plural. And here we supply a list of them, so it has to be plural.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it'd be good to, well, okay, yeah, both of those kinds of changes make sense to me. Are there any other things we haven't talked about?
There was one thing that I didn't really look into, but
and also one quick question. So you can make lines, right?
Yes, but it's bad. Like not all browsers support them, and they be 1 pixel. The width will be 1 pixel.
Okay.
And not all browsers support width.
And does the width get set with a function call?
Yes.
Okay. That seems weird. It feels like the width should be attached to the string, to the line, not to the drawable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that would be really easy to work out in the implementation, where whenever you see a line, you first set the line width, and then at the end you unset it. So when thinking about the function call stuff, I keep that kind of thing in mind. It's like I would want to put them as specifically as possible. So like you are called to think about them at the appropriate time, as opposed to here's a 1,000-page book of all the different OpenGL function calls.
So it doesn't make sense to set line width for triangle.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was something that I think would be easier to do again when they're all functions as opposed to constructors in this way. But okay, but so the other thing that you were going to mention.
The other thing is different ways to load and initiate texture.
Okay. How do you do it now, by the way? I guess it changed when tasks came out, and I'm curious what it looks like.
And it's the same. It's
well, I don't know what it looked like when tasks came out. I remember the initial design being kind of like,
so currently it's let me open the code in WebGL. So there is like load texture that takes the URL and returns texture with linear filter applied. And there is load texture with filter that can be configured. And filter is linear or nearest.
What's nearest do?
I think it's like a different kind of interpolation.
Okay.
It's resized.
So how do you feel about splitting? So I noticed WebGL is just one module with everything. It feels a little bit like there could be some clarity gained from just like learning the library if it was broken up. So I had suggested WebGL settings before, but do you think it might make sense to have like a texture area and like?
I think it makes to.
So sorry, the sound cut out.
Remove. I think it definitely makes sense to move texture into a separate module. Because like texture filter is not the only thing that is possible.
Yeah.
That you can set on the texture.
And then we won't have to say load texture. There's this, I guess, convention in another language where they'll name the module texture and then they'll say load texture, and it's like, yeah, that's what we're doing. We're in the texture module. So yeah, so you could have load and load with. And okay, so I think that might be a good move. I think it will be tricky to draw those lines such that, well, one thing to think about is I am not sure how well codified everything should be qualified imports was when this was initially designed. So it may have all gotten put in one, just sort of assuming that people would import it all unqualified. So in any case, that's a change that I think it might make sense to rope in with the hiding the union types. Okay, but what was the root thing? Something about textures.
Y coordinate of the texture when it loads it. So it mirrors the texture upside down when it loads it.
Oh, so they're just more settings.
It's like, and this thing is hard-coded in the native part, but there are more things that you can do with textures when you initiate them. And some
you cut out again.
of them affect. There are more, like there are function calls that you can apply on the texture. And some of them improve performance. Some of them can like mirror the texture, and the one that is currently applied, it mirrors, flips the y-axis of the texture.
Gotcha. Okay, so and that's a similar thing where like it's a function call, but it should be attached at a more specific location.
So like load this texture, and when you initiate it, apply this set of function calls. Yeah,
that makes sense. I don't know if it makes sense to do all of those in one go. Just because it feels like with the line thickness, I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily want to make too many changes all at once, but I'd be curious to see the list of things that are deemed to be relevant to texture and like think that through carefully, right? So I would approach creating a WebGL texture module as I read all 1,000 of the things and figure out which of them are relevant to textures and make sure I get them all in the first draft.
Okay.
Or at least know about them all and then whittle the list down based on what I've learned from that.
I will try to summarize all
Cool.
possible things.
Cool.
I think that's all.
Yeah. Can I look at the texture, the load texture type again real quick though?
It's open.
Okay. Oh, sorry. It's switching, so I was like, I'm just looking at me. Okay, so it's a task. Do you think? Yeah. Okay. No, it's fine. It's a task. If you're doing WebGL, it's complicated. You'll be fine.
It does internally just creates an image, sets an SRC, and adds on load and on error callbacks.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I was just wondering if it should be a command, but I think task is better in this case. So cool. So yeah, all that sounds reasonable. So in terms of what would be coming up soon, I think is there anything that's minor anymore, or would it all have to go in the major change?
So minor was adding attributes, but I think those WebGL context attributes.
Yeah.
However, do you think it makes sense to turn them into function calls, like settings, or it can be a record?
I think that you should use the types to, as much as possible, to make sure you're not putting function calls where they don't make sense, right? So I wouldn't combine the overall context with the function call thing if you can't use them in both places.
And then what will the main function look like to HTML? So we have to HTML with more that takes list of function calls. And the proposal was to add to HTML with even more that take those context attributes.
Can you show me that function? It's funny.
Context.
I think there was a development of like, what do you call a function with extra configuration? And it came to be with, but this was before that time. So my feeling would be that there should be two HTML and there should be two HTML with that takes a record that includes in the record a list of settings or function calls as they're called now. Right, so you have your like 6 context things that you showed me and then a 7th settings, and that's a list, and it's just like the other ones.
Oh, yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, and so that would also then be a breaking change. So
yeah, everything is breaking change.
Yeah, I think it'll be better after these things though.
So yeah, so in the default context, default attributes, it will be just an empty list or some predefined thing.
Yeah. So I'd be interested in, once you've sort of sorted out all the different functions that will be in the new one, I think drawing the lines between modules will be really interesting from a like learning perspective, because I'd expect people to read WebGL first, and I would want that to read in a logical order such that people then know to jump to these sort of side topics at the right time. So you'd know, okay, now I'm going to go read about textures, or I'm going to go read about settings. But in your initial read, things make sense. And so one question is like, where does context live? And maybe it's just at the very bottom of that root file, but I'm not sure. So I don't know. I'd be interested to sort of see that drafts of that as that's getting worked out. Because I think you can definitely over-modularize it, so you've got like 10 different ones. And in 18, I think HTML actually had that problem. So HTML app collapsing into HTML, I think had a relatively significant impact on that library feeling like it made sense just from looking at the docs. But
Okay, so it has to be designed as like a book with...
That's how I like to think of it that way. Because like whenever I learn a new library, like I go read the docs, you know, and if they're not readable, I'm like, this isn't good, right? Like this isn't, well, it's just like hard to get in if you have to read everything to understand anything. And that's like a choice the author makes.
Okay, does it also make sense to move drawables into a separate module? Or
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. That might be, because like I wouldn't want the core WebGL module to just like not really do anything. Right? If it's like...
Okay, so it should have like a bare minimum, like it should be able to make like a RGB triangle.
Yeah.
Using the...
So, and one way to structure the docs to just be readable is like, I'll sometimes say like, I'll say at the top, like, here's the type, here's how you create it, here are some things you put inside of it. And then there's a subheading that's like crazy stuff. And then it's like custom this, custom that. And so as a reader, you're like, I get that this is the core abstraction and this is baseline getting started. And then here's a bunch of other fancier stuff. And that's when you'll start going out to submodules and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, so I feel that putting drawables in its own would be overkill, but I'm not, I'd have to see it to know.
Okay, I'll try to do it. I mean, so what's like, maybe I should just combine everything together and create a new branch and we'll try to...
I think one way I might go about it is like just have one file that's got all the type signatures that will be public, and then start trying to like tell the story of them. And as you feel like, okay, this is its own, then you'll split it out. So like, don't think about the code too much. It's really just like, at one way in my own work that I'll get the docs to read reasonable is I'll write it one at a time. So the whole module is implemented, no dot comment. So it's going to yell at me on every single one. And I'll add them one at a time with the top one, the top dot comment, and try to tell a reasonable story and then reorder as that top comment works or doesn't work. And that may even mean changing the sub comment to like match a previous or subsequent one in a... So I'm not saying you have to do all this, but like it'd be good to at least make the list and do the sorting at a higher level than just like, oh, these are related, there's a module.
The current documentation is like not really good. Like it took me a while to understand how things work.
Yeah, so, and I don't, WebGL is like, that'd be awesome if the docs were just like, people just get it. But there is, the like shader stuff is kind of tricky, so.
It's not that hard, like once you understand it.
Yeah, well, everything's not that hard once you understand it.
Well, what I really needed to understand was like how to do two-dimensional things, because all the examples are like, here's your rotating cube. And
yeah, and
I
don't know that actually, yeah. So yeah, and that's another thing to think about as well, is like in making the docs read clearly, I'll try to link out as appropriate where there are things that I don't feel fit in a linear story, but are definitely relevant to some subsection of readers. So that's another way to do that kind of thing.
So yeah, I have to think about what this story should tell about. Like,
it's more just like whenever you're writing docs and you write a word that your reader doesn't know yet because you haven't introduced the term yet, like there's a problem. And so it's really just like reordering until like that rule is followed. Like this doc refers only to things that exist, or it refers to something that's about to show up, and like it's something that as a reader you're like, it's fine that I don't know this. It's obvious that that's not relevant right now. So yeah, but this is cool. I think these changes are going to be really nice. I thought more would have to happen to make WebGL cover more stuff, but it seems like it's pretty far along already. That's cool.
Yeah, interactivity is tricky. Like,
oh, the picking. Yeah, should we talk? Yeah, that one's interesting because you need an ID, right, to know what you picked.
yeah.
And then that
It's
would
like a key node in virtual DOM.
yeah. So that doesn't seem straightforward in the sense that I think you'd have to add to every drawable an ID, or at least there would be some optional thing such that you only added it in certain cases. And then you have questions like, should it be a string or an int or a union type, like any type anyone wants. And if it's any type anyone wants, now you have a type variable that shows up in all drawables that would be the key. And like, that's a pretty, that's, I don't know. I don't love that. What if we, can we revisit that one? Like, I agree that that'd be really cool. Like, that's definitely something I wanted when I was messing with OpenGL years ago. But my sense is that that's a API challenge more than a implementation one. And it's worth thinking, what would be the plus and minus of it just always being int? Is having a custom type worth it? Like, I can just label multiple things the same thing, even if I have a union type. So like, does it really give you much? I don't know. Those are questions I'm not that, I don't have enough data to answer. And so I feel like if you get a example situation of like, here's a realistic time I'd want to use picking, it might become clearer what the API should look like for the goals of situations and like that one and similar.
No, I think of it, it will require an additional shader, additional fragment shader.
Why? A public one or just internally?
Because there is some logic in there, and I don't know, if you want to give certain thing a color, it has to go through the fragment shader.
Yeah, but like, not, why would it have to be a user one? So like, they give you a mesh and they give you like dimensions and stuff. And anytime they set a color, you say, no, I'm going to do something else. And you set your own color, right? Like, so you just render it again, and then you see if your pixel aligns with the color, right?
Yeah, true. Except like if it has some transparent things.
You just wouldn't ever do those, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah,
it's a custom fragment shader.
that would be, well, yeah, totally internal though, I think. I don't know if the types would have to line up with the...
It should be possible to do it.
Yeah. Well, the fragment shader would just look for colors, right? And the fragment shader would say, does this pixel, is it this color? Something like this.
Yeah, so it's like for just mapping drawables, like each render thing will have its own color. That's it.
Yeah. So yeah, so I think the only public facing thing that would come from this would be, well, now you need like event and like a on mouse move, on click, you need events like that, and the data associated with them would be the like picking information. So it'd be nothing if it was untagged and just whatever like key type we pick, whether that's user defined or not. It seems like it should be user defined now that I just say it. Like, yeah.
Like a union type.
Yeah, like that's what I would want if I was picking like a menu, for example, menu entries or something, or buttons.
But what if each renderable got like its own like virtual DOM event, like event?
What do you mean?
On click, for example, like you, and then we will know that this is this on click. So it's similar, like if you and you have on clicks attached to both, and you know yourself what kind of function you're passing.
Yeah. Okay, so either way, you do end up with a additional type. So in that case, you definitely end up with an extra type variable, but you have the logical connection to HTML. So you'd have a drawable message.
Yeah.
That seems reasonable to me when it's said that way. I don't know what it looks like to add event handlers directly. Like, I think it's reasonable to call them messages. No, I don't. It's not the same, because you're on mouse for a particular. Like, if it's on mouse on anything, it has to be. You have to do all the work for the whole thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So there is one event attached to the canvas, and from that event, we know what is where is the cursor.
Yeah.
And then we can go through all the things that, yeah. So
yeah, I don't know. There are also optimizations you can do with picking. Like, you only have to draw as deep as the last thing with the possibility of being picked, and everything behind it you don't have to draw, just because it won't block the view, right? So if I have three things, like one is my face, like, and my hands, and this one is pickable, I don't have to render my face because my face will never block the thing. So there are optimizations like that that might be possible. So like in the first render, maybe you go through and you mark the last pickable thing, and in the second render for picking, you stop at that. I don't know, something like this might be possible. But I don't know if they're crazier. Like, I suspect if you're doing really intense stuff, you'd want to do like region-based picking, where you know your mouse is in this quadrant, so you only draw things in that quadrant. I don't know. So,
but in order to figure this, the vertex shader has to run.
Yeah. Well, what I'm getting at is, like, it's possible to do a simple version of this, but I'm not sure in a super advanced case you can do it in a generic way. Just because, like, you will leave optimizations on the table, I think.
Oh, I think I know it's possible to crop the region that is rendered. And when the vertex shader goes through all the vertices, it calculates
Will it
things
be in
for
that?
fragment shader, and in fragment shader, I think it's possible to set like please render only this part of
Ah, okay. So maybe we can do a pretty generic picking
one
thing
pixel.
in this case. Okay. Yeah, but that would be awesome. If you can do something like that, then maybe you can do a generic one.
It's interesting, but I think it's better to focus now on like changing the main API.
Yeah. This feels like a second pass kind of thing, like version 3, because it definitely will also be breaking changes, but kind of like really badass ones that unify with HTML. Like that would be so cool. So yeah, so for the picking one, I'd be interested in doing like some sort of showcase of the changes, but even for 2.0, I think it might be cool to show a demo of like, as a proper blog post of like, hey, here's what WebGL and Elm looks like. Because I don't know, I know there are demos out there, but I don't know if there's any resources, at least since 12.3, that were like, hey, Elm and WebGL, it's like pretty neat.
I'm trying to like find all the examples of all the cool things that people are doing with WebGL.
Yeah, that might actually be the best way to make a blog post, is not get technical, but just be like, hey, look, it's cool. Cool. So it sounds like plan is focus on the non-picking things. That'll all be a major change. And then after that's done, think more about picking and messages and keys and all that.
And textures.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
textures will be postponed.
Okay. Makes sense to me. And I think now I have context on stuff, so it'll be a lot easier to just look at code. So I think the big thing I'd be interested in would be just reading what the documentation would look like, and that'll be enough, really. So I think that's the kind of coordination we need to do after this.
Okay, yeah, so I will focus on this.
Cool.
I'm not sure how long it will take me.
Well, there's time. There's time. WebGL will still exist, and I assume WebGL 2 is 5 years out, as things typically are on the web.
So, yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for doing this video design session thing. I'm glad I got to like relearn Elm WebGL. And
I hope I was helpful.
yeah, for sure. These were, I think, details that I ended up not knowing about just because I did very simple, like draw a crate, and I never messed with any of the function calls really, I don't think. So yeah, so thanks a lot. And for people watching, if you're interested in WebGL, like give it a shot. It's really fun. Like when you get a cube on screen and it like does something, you're just like, I'm invincible. But yeah, anyway, thanks again, and talk to you guys later.
Thank you.